to let a black man know that he is not walking in a neighborhood where he is welcome or safe. The speaker knows the effect of that word and uses it precisely because it terrorizes. I asked earlier, why is it that we recognize in American law that if someone spits on your shoe, that's an attack on your personhood? But we won't recognize words that we know socially, historically, from the reality of the human lives that we live, have exactly the same effect on your personhood and your ability to move freely. I am talking about liberty, and it's fascinating that we are all coming from the Enlightenment tradition. And as much as we disagree, I feel affinity with people on the opposing side because we are all concerned with losing our democracy and losing our freedom. I think there are forms of speech that make us less free because we stop talking to each other and we don't have the conversations we need to survive. And allowing this kind of invective perpetuated, Daisy has been out on a limb on herself defending the Muslim community, and I have to speak up. There is hatred of Islam in this country, and it's not a healthy thing. There's also ignorance. And we need to open a space where we can talk to each other, disagree, criticize, and learn. And that space closes when people are allowed to assault. I'm not asking for censorship. I'm asking that if you support the proposition, you're making a choice for a license to assault.
Daisy,
if you oppose it, you open the door for a conversation about limits.
Okay, next. Thank you. That was Mari Matsuda. Now for the proposition, Signe Wilkinson.
Well, I basically said earlier what pretty much what I think here, but the I'll just go back to what Christopher said. You have to have, this is a conversation. If you forbid someone to say what's truly on their mind, you won't know what is on their mind. And it's better almost every time, it seems to me, to find out what it is and then be able to deal with it. I think some of the questions get back to what is truly hateful speech, and our history is filled with, for example, horrible images of black Americans who were made fun of simply because they were black. And these images occurred everywhere in Courier and Ives and all of the major publications in the United States. But the way that changed was not by someone saying, you may not ever do a bad caricature of a black person. It was changed because the civil rights movement and black Americans showed through their own incredible endurance and persistence in going for equal rights in this country, that movement made those images look awful. You can't look at them today without wincing. It says more about the people who drew the cartoons than about the who they were drawn by. So I feel sorry for you in New York because you don't have very many really bitter cartoons published here. The New York Times protects you from that. But I really urge you to go on the web, find out what people are thinking, and you'll find out through cartoons, among other pieces of free speech.
Thank you. Thank you, Signe Wilkinson. Against, David Cesarani.
Yeah, I think what Signe said then about the struggle of black Americans to eradicate racist images from public media was very interesting and very important. It was about equal rights. There was a loss. There were some cartoonists who made a living from making fun of black people and depicting them in ghastly ways, who probably went out of business or just migrated to certain parts of America where that sort of thing is still tolerated. Elsewhere, however, the dignity of black Americans, that's true of women, of gays, and other groups who used to suffer demeaning and degrading images and speech acts, their equality, and the need to preserve a civilized, civil society for which civility, respect of one for another is absolutely vital, triumphed.
Wow.
Dignity, equality, and civility are values. They are goods. Freedom of expression is a value, and it is a good. On this side, we're simply been asking you to weigh up those values, those goods. We think that human dignity, equal treatment, and having a truly civil society is worth a modest, preferably voluntary degree of constraint, restraint, a showing of humility, knowing where to draw the line. Thank you.
Thank you, David Cesarani. Now, for the proposition, Philip Gourevitch.
The proposition is freedom of expression must include the license to offend. I would return to the idea that this is fundamentally the lesser of various not ideal prospects. The other prospect is that one licenses someone to determine what offends, and that one is always at the prey of that question. Who is to judge? Who is to decide? How are we to restrict their ability to license our ability to offend? In other words, how are we to restrict their ability to restrict us? And at what point does this admittedly slippery slope immediately become this greased precipice and we fall off into a very dangerous situation? The other side says speech is dangerous, can be hateful, there's hatred and ignorance out there, and therefore they want in some way to muzzle the people that they fear are dangerous. I agree with them that speech is dangerous and speech can be dangerous, and that there is a great deal of hatred and ignorance out there. We've heard a good deal of ignorance even tonight. And I feel that is why I urge you strongly to listen to the dangerous speech you're hearing from the other side and recognize exactly how it can impinge upon your ability not only to speak but to think. The fact that they keep using this strangely castrated phrase, the N-word, which is supposed to be inoffensive, but is actually doubly offensive because it restricts you from the ability to hear the full offense of the word nigger. And they're at every time trying to double back and triple around and make you use words and trip over your own mind and not think and not speak what actually might occur to you in their effort to observe reality and contend with it. I think that's a very dangerous predicament. I think that they are presumptuous and wild in their notion that we can do that reasonably. And I think that we are at less risk, taking the great risk of freedom.
Thank you, Philip Gourevitch. Against the proposition, Daisy Kahn.
If all of us here wanted to offend each other, I'm sure we can. But would it be beneficial to building trust and building long-term relationships? I was stunned at the response I got about my rabbi friend. It is because I have been dialoguing with the Jewish community.
Yes, your question has been registered. Daisy, please continue.
It is the deep dialogue that has been going on between me and the Jewish community that has resulted in that concern for our community. And it is out of that concern that the rabbi friend reached out to me and said, do not let this happen to you. And so I was a little shell-shocked at the reaction we got from people here. As I mentioned, we're living in a tense global environment where misunderstanding is increased by peddlers of fear and overpowered by intolerance. Today, what is needed is civility, tolerance, patience, and sincerity. We need to get rid of negative words like offend. It's a negative word. And replace them with positive words like befriend. Only once you make the effort to understand the perspective of the other person, can you begin to understand the rationale behind the actions and thoughts. Furthermore, you'll be in a better position to influence them. And only then can you even begin to be critical. We humans have a nasty habit of judging the book by its cover. If you're offensive, it is difficult to make a difference because you are seen as hostile and your views are unwelcomed and outright rejected. This is human nature. No doubt, it is essential to be critical, but do so at the right time, in the right environment, and with the right choice of words. Sticks and stones are not the only thing that break bones, ladies and gentlemen. Words do too. On a personal note, the reason I'm here today and I've dedicated the rest of my life to furthering understanding between peoples has to do with my powerful memories of my childhood in Kashmir. I went to Catholic school, was taught by Irish nuns, learned math.